The first blast tore through the silence of the colony night, fire swallowing homes and families in a heartbeat. Alarms screamed, skies burned, and amid the chaos, a single truth settled like ash across every survivor's chest. This was no accident. It was an extermination. The enemy thought humans would scatter, fragile and broken, the way so many species had before them. But scattered across burning streets, bunkers, and crumbling cities, something ancient stirred in us. Not despair, not surrender. Something else. Something our enemies had never faced. One man, one soldier, one father, one survivor, would carry the weight of that fury. His name didn't matter. What mattered was the choice before him. Hide and wait for the inevitable, or rise and make the stars remember Earth's answer to genocide. The galaxy thought it knew what humanity was. But what happens when they finally see what we become when everything we love is set aflame? The colony of Arden 4 was never meant to be remarkable. A small world circling a pale sun at the fringe of mapped space. Its skies were streaked with endless violet clouds, and its nights hummed with the songs of alien insects that had learned to coexist with human settlers. For most, life here was steady, uneventful, an honest life carved out of wilderness and hard work. For Elias Cade, it was home. He woke each morning before the sun lifted over the ridges, his hands calloused from years tending the terraforming engines and repairing weather grids. Elias was no soldier, no hero. He was a man of soil, sweat, and family. His daughter, Marin, chased him down the dusty road to the reactor stations, laughter spilling behind her like music. His wife, Lyra, painted the skies in the evenings, capturing the shifting clouds as if she could hold beauty still. It was a simple life, fragile but good. Yet even in the quiet rhythm of Arden 4, whispers drifted in from the wider galaxy. Refugees arriving at the docks spoke of fleets on the move, of colonies erased without warning. Rumors said an empire far older than Earth had begun its purge again, and this time their gaze was turning outward, to every species who dared stand apart. The settlers heard these stories with unease, but Arden 4 had always seemed too small, too distant, to matter. Who would waste the fire of war on a place like this? Elias told himself the same when he tucked his daughter into bed at night, when she asked if the stars were safe. "Always," he said, brushing her hair back with a smile he didn't entirely believe. But he knew better. Humans always did. Because in the silence between rumors, there was a truth carried down from Earth itself. Humanity's rise had not gone unnoticed. We were no longer the fragile newcomers. We had ships, armies, and a will that refused to bend. And for powers that built their empires on submission, that was a dangerous thing. The first sign came quietly. Static on long-range comms, supply freighters delayed, patrol beacons vanishing from the outer routes. Elias noticed the unease in the voices of off-world traders, saw the way they scanned the skies as if expecting shadows to descend. Something was closing in, though none could yet see its shape. Life on Arden 4 carried on. The colony festival approached, a celebration of 10 years since landing, with music, food, and banners strung across the central square. Children practiced their dances, vendors stocked stalls, and for a moment it felt as if joy could banish fear. Elias held Lyra's hand beneath the starlight, telling himself there was still time, that maybe the war would never come here. But deep down, he remembered Earth's history, how humanity had always been tested not in times of comfort, but when survival itself was torn from their grasp. He looked at Marin running through the crowds, her laughter bright against the night, and he felt the weight of an unspoken promise. Whatever storm was coming, he would not let it take her future. And as the fireworks burst overhead, reflecting against violet clouds, Elias caught something else beyond the spectacle. A flicker in the sky. Not a firework. Not a shooting star. A glimmer of metal where no satellite should have been, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. No one else seemed to notice. But Elias did. And in that instant, the festival's joy felt suddenly fragile, like glass waiting for the first stone to fall. The colony of Arden 4 had survived droughts, storms, and hardship, but the storm now approaching was not of weather or chance. It was the storm of war. And Elias Cade, farmer, husband, and father, was about to learn what humanity truly became when cornered. Because whispers had reached Arden 4, and whispers were only ever the first shadow of fire. The warning came not as a broadcast, but as fire. The night after the festival, the skies above Arden 4 split open. A line of ships descended like a blade through the stars, sleek, angular silhouettes blotting out the heavens. The alarms that shrieked across the colony were useless. No one had time to run. The first strike leveled the docks. Fire rose in columns, swallowing the lifeblood of the settlement in a single, merciless instant. Families fled into the streets. Children screamed. The enemy had come without words, without demands. This was not conquest. It was eradication. Elias Cade grabbed Marin and Lyra, dragging them toward the shelter tunnels cut into the ridge. Behind them, the colony they had built from dust crumbled under the precision of alien bombardment. But even as chaos swallowed Arden 4, Elias noticed something others didn't. The pattern of strikes wasn't random. The enemy was cutting supply routes, burning communications first, leaving the hab blocks for last. They were efficient, cold, a predator dismantling prey. And that told him one thing: they feared resistance. For 3 days, Arden 4 burned. The survivors huddled in the tunnels, rationing water and praying for aid that never came. The outer colonies had been cut off, and the wider Terran fleet was light years away. In the dark, Elias heard the whispers, "We are forgotten. We are alone." But humanity was never truly alone. From the ashes of the destroyed dockyard, a group of colonists pulled what they could from the wreckage: scattered weapon crates, half-burned comm arrays, fragments of shuttle hulls. Engineers, miners, farmers, they were not soldiers, but they were human, and humans had never needed permission to fight back. Elias found himself among them. He had no training, no rank, but he had resolve. He knew machines, knew power systems, knew how to make broken things breathe again. While others despaired, he pulled wire from scorched girders, patched batteries with melted scrap, rewired a comm beacon to catch signals that weren't meant for civilian ears. That's when they heard it. A faint transmission. Fragmented, but real. A Terran ship had received their distress call, but it was small. A corvette, lightly armed, not nearly enough to take on an Imperial fleet. The message was clear. Hold out, endure, survive until we arrive. It was not a promise of salvation. It was a challenge. The enemy descended again on the 4th night. Troop landers swept the ridges, hunting survivors. Black-armored figures disembarked, their forms tall and insectile, mandibles gleaming under alien armor. The sight alone drove many colonists into silence, paralyzed by terror. But Elias remembered Earth's stories, how humanity had always been underestimated, from the plains of Africa to the trenches of Earth's old wars. Always dismissed, always outnumbered, always victorious. So he made a choice. While the others scattered deeper into the tunnels, Elias led a handful of volunteers topside. Armed with nothing more than mining charges and scavenged rifles, they laid ambushes along the ridge. When the first squad of aliens advanced, precise and unhurried, expecting prey, Elias triggered the detonators. The ridge exploded in fire and stone, collapsing the ground beneath the alien soldiers. Their black forms twisted and fell, shrieking through their alien comms. In the chaos, Elias's people struck, rifle fire cutting through armor seams, blades flashing in the dust. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens faltered. It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was proof. The Empire's soldiers could bleed. Word spread through the tunnels. Elias's defiance became something more than survival. It became a rallying point. Colonists who once whispered in fear now sharpened blades, fitted scavenged armor, and joined raids against supply depots and patrols. What had been a colony on the brink of extinction became a resistance. The aliens adapted quickly. Patrols doubled. Bombardments resumed with greater precision. But every hour the humans endured was an hour closer to the corvette's arrival. The fight became a test of will. Elias led strike after strike, choosing targets not for destruction alone, but for message. They cut power lines, hijacked enemy comm signals, turned stolen tech against its makers. When an alien gunship strafed the ridge, Elias rerouted an old terraforming engine into a makeshift cannon, blasting the craft from the sky. The fireball lit the night, and for the first time, the colonists cheered. But victory always carried a price. Each raid cost lives. Marin saw children she once played with vanish into the ash of battle. Lyra treated the wounded in the tunnels, her hands stained red each night. And Elias carried the guilt of each loss, wondering how many more would die before help arrived. Still, he pressed forward. Because he understood the truth the aliens had overlooked. Humanity didn't need fleets or dreadnoughts to fight back. Humanity needed only the will to refuse surrender. On the seventh day, as dawn painted the violet clouds, the enemy struck with overwhelming force. Dropships fell across the colony, disgorging platoons of armored soldiers. The bombardments intensified, collapsing the tunnels one by one. The aliens were done waiting. They meant to scour Arden 4 from existence. The resistance fought with everything they had. Explosives tore through landing craft. Rifle fire echoed across ridges. Men and women charged with nothing but knives against armored foes. It was chaos, brutal and desperate. Elias rallied his fighters at the heart of the colony, defending the last intact shelter. Alien soldiers surged like a tide, their advance inevitable. And then, above the smoke, a new light split the sky. Not bombardment, not fire. A flare of engines, streaking like a falling star. The Terran corvette had arrived. Cheers broke out among the survivors, but Elias saw what others didn't. The corvette was small, too small. It banked through the atmosphere, unleashing strafing fire, tearing through alien squads. But for every soldier it killed, dozens more advanced. The ship could not turn the tide alone, which meant it wasn't the savior. It was the spark. Through his patched comms, Elias caught the captain's voice. "We can't hold the sky. But we can drop supplies. Make it count." Moments later, canisters fell across the colony, slamming into the dirt. Rifles, explosives, field kits, armor. Weapons the colonists had never touched, now in their hands. And in that instant, the resistance became an army. The battle stretched into night. Humans fought street by street, house by house. Every corner became a barricade, every ruin a fortress. Elias led from the front, rifles smoking, explosives strapped to his chest as he wove through fire and rubble. The aliens pushed harder, but the humans matched them blow for blow. Each skirmish cost blood, but it bought time. Time for the corvette to circle back. Time for signals to spread beyond Arden 4. Time for the Empire to realize their mistake. Because they had thought Arden 4 was a colony, a weak, isolated outpost. They hadn't realized it was something far more dangerous. It was a seed of Earth. By dawn, both sides were bloodied. Arden 4 was half ash, half fortress, scarred by fire yet unbroken. The corvette hovered low, battered but alive, its captain promising reinforcements were en route. But Elias knew the battle wasn't finished. The aliens were regrouping, their command ship descending from orbit, a shadow vast enough to blot out the rising sun. The true test had arrived, and Elias Cade, farmer-turned-fighter, stood at the front of his people, rifle in hand, as the sky darkened with the weight of an empire. The storm had come, and humanity was ready to answer. The shadow of the alien command ship swallowed Arden 4's sky. It was a vessel the size of a city, its hull bristling with weapons, its descent shaking the very ground. The smaller warships that had scoured the colony were nothing compared to this behemoth. If it landed, Arden 4 would be erased. No resistance could endure the firepower it carried. The colonists looked up in silence, terror gripping their throats. Even the corvette circling above hesitated, its captain's voice crackling over comms. "That's a battleship. We can't." Elias cut the transmission. He could feel despair creeping into every face around him, threatening to unravel all they had fought for. And he knew, if they broke now, it was over. He raised his rifle, not at the enemy, but toward his people. "We've bled, we've burned, we've lost everything they thought would break us. And still, we stand. That ship isn't our grave. It's theirs. If they want this world, they'll have to tear it from our hands." Something shifted in the crowd. Fear became fury. Farmers, miners, children clutching rifles all raised their weapons. They were ready. The alien ship opened fire. Beams of searing energy carved trenches through the colony, vaporizing barricades. Screams tore through the smoke as soldiers were cut down. But humanity did not scatter. They surged forward, a tide of defiance against an empire that had never been denied. Elias led from the front. Explosives strapped to his chest, stolen alien grenades at his belt, rifle steady despite the chaos. Every step forward was a miracle, every breath stolen from death. The corvette screamed overhead, its cannons blazing. But it was clear. The ship couldn't last. Already its shields flickered under the enemy's barrage. Soon it would fall. "Captain," Elias called over comms, voice raw. "Get low. Drop me at their heart." The reply came back in disbelief. "That's suicide." "Then it's the only way." There was no hesitation after that. Humanity had always gambled with impossible odds. The corvette banked hard, diving through enemy fire, its hull ablaze. Elias clung to the drop hatch, heat blistering his skin, the ground a blur beneath him. Around him, the colonists screamed their defiance, buying him the seconds he needed. The hatch blew open. Elias leapt into the storm. Wind howled, fire streaked past. He hit the command ship's hull hard, armor rattling his bones. For a heartbeat, he couldn't breathe. Then he moved, crawling across scorched metal, planting explosives, tearing through maintenance hatches with bare hands. The aliens never expected resistance this close. Their arrogance was his weapon. Inside, the corridors glowed with alien light, humming with power. Tall, insectile warriors turned in surprise as Elias charged. He didn't stop. Bullets tore through chitin and steel. Grenades ripped corridors apart. He fought like a man already dead, a ghost of Earth come to deliver vengeance. Every wound burned. Every breath was fire, but he pressed on, deeper, closer to the heart of the ship. At last, he reached it, the reactor core, a vast chamber of pulsing light, the heart of the Empire's terror. One detonation here would cripple the behemoth, maybe even destroy it. Elias staggered forward, blood dripping down his arm. His comm crackled with Lyra's voice, breaking through static. "Elias, where are you, please?" He smiled through the pain. "Tell Marin, her father kept his promise." He pressed the detonator. The explosion shook the heavens. Light erupted from the alien battleship, a spear of fire stabbing into the sky. The shockwave rolled across Arden 4, flattening towers of smoke, throwing both human and alien alike to the ground. The ship shuddered, groaned, and then split apart, raining fire across the horizon. The Empire's greatest weapon, brought down not by fleets, not by armies, but by one man who refused to bow. On the surface, silence followed. The alien soldiers froze, their command severed, their certainty shattered. For the first time, they faltered, and the colonists, bloodied and broken, surged forward with a roar that shook the ridges. They drove the invaders back, hunting them through the ruins until the last black-armored soldier fell. Above, the corvette limped through the smoke, battered but alive. Its captain's voice cracked with awe. He did it! By the stars, he actually did it. But there was no answer from Elias, only fire where he had stood. Lyra held Marin close as dawn broke over Arden 4, the violet clouds painted with ash and flame. Around them, survivors gathered, their faces scarred, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had endured. They had won. Yet the cost was written in every silence, every tear. The Empire had come to erase humanity. And one man had taught them fear. The question was no longer whether Arden 4 would survive. It was this: when word of what had happened here reached the stars, how would the galaxy face the fury of a species that refused to die? The battlefield hung silent. The stars above still glimmered, but the void felt different, emptier, as though the universe itself had paused to witness what had just transpired. Where once an armada of alien warships blotted out the heavens, only drifting wreckage remained, their broken hulls scattering like ash across the cosmos. And in the center of it all, one human vessel still burned, but it had not fallen. It had endured. The survivors stumbled from their stations, exhausted, battered, yet alive. They carried with them not just victory, but proof. Proof that humanity, though outnumbered, though underestimated, could never be broken. Across the comms, alien channels erupted in disbelief. Species who had once scoffed at Earth now whispered in awe. They spoke the name of humanity with something new in their voices, something that sounded like fear and respect. But for the humans aboard that ship, it wasn't about fear. It was about survival, about the stubborn refusal to kneel, no matter the odds. They had fought not for conquest, but for home. And as the stars fell quiet once more, a single question echoed across the galaxy. If this was what humanity could unleash when cornered, what would happen when they finally rose united?